What have you been advising your portfolio companies in this day alone?
I mean, it's been incredible chaos. So my phone has been blowing up. We have 250 portfolio companies, and I'd say about 30% are involved with SVB. So the first thing we said to them yesterday is we need to stay calm and we need to all get collectively on the same page of what's happening. So in our case, we have 250 portfolio companies. We have another 500 LPs that are also founders. So all of these people we have in our community, and they're really suffering. So in terms of advice, we tend to take an approach of let's share information, and founders need to make their own decisions.
Ultimately, do you have a relationship with Silicon Valley Bank as well at the fund? And what have you decided to do in terms of your own working capital and money that you have with them?
We do. I've had a long-standing relationship with SVB. They've been incredible supporters of the startup ecosystem, and quite frankly, of the emerging managers like us as well. So they've been absolutely critical. We do have a banking relationship with them, and we do keep assets with them. And so it's been a very hard moment. We're trying to help our startups. We're also trying to help ourselves. So just that contrast has been, quite hard.
Jenny, what I keep hearing from conversations with venture capitalists and founders is, honestly, there's a real concern here, not just about the operational and cash needs of startups, but their mental health as well. And I just wondered if you'd reflect on some of the conversations you've had with portfolio founders today and how difficult it's been for them as leaders, as business operators.
I canceled pretty much all of my meetings today just to field calls from founders. This is a very unsettling time. I mean, this is a very hard time in tech, just in general, right? The markets have created a lot of pressure on these companies. Raising capital is not how it was, last year. And so compounding what's happening today, a lot of our companies are really suffering. So we try to be a sounding board. We try to listen. We try to provide resources. But ultimately, it's just a traumatic time.
There was a proposed idea from Sam Altman that actually what founders and startups need right now is cash. Just give cash if you can. Does that make sense to you? Is it a sort of stopgap for what's happening out there in terms of making payroll and working capital?
It really does. I mean, venture capitalists like to run around saying they provide value. Well, this is the time to provide value to your portfolio companies. You need to listen to them, and you need to be able to support them. And many VCs are able to do that or provide resources, right? There are other opportunities for people to kind of come in. But yeah, if you have payroll and you've been tied up in Silicon Valley Bank, and that money, maybe 250,000 is available on Monday. If you have 50 employees, right, making 150,000, you're in a deficit of about $100,000 just this Monday. So everyone is quite nervous, and I think it is a time to chip in and support our founders.
To that point, Parker Conrad of Rippling, which is in many ways a company that helps with payroll, and they themselves discovered yesterday, of course, the Silicon Valley issue and the fact that they have their own exposure, and they notified some customers that, look, some payroll processing is going to be stalled because of SVB, even though they did actually switch their banking to JP Morgan in large part. Talk to us about, does this have a cascade effect? Like, what do people do about not being able to make payroll? Do they have to let people go?
I mean, it's a really interesting question. I think that the most important thing is there's open communication, right? We saw in the waves of layoffs, when there isn't good communication with your employees, that's when things really go awry. So have communication. Our founders are speaking to their employees all the time, today, of what's going on and really warning them. And I think that's a great sign of leadership, just being proactive. But yes, there is a real worry that payroll will not be made on Monday.
Jenny, Arjun from Tribe Capital was on the show earlier. He makes the point that there was already a funding deficit prior to the events of the last 24 hours. He expects a number of startups to fail, but not as many as you might think. What is your outlook for the health, particularly at the early stage?
So interestingly, the early stage has been somewhat shielded from some of the stuff that's going on. So if you were a startup in the Series B, Series C, it's been quite dire. But early stage has been okay. So our trajectory, we're long-term investors. We invest at the first round of capital. We want to hold our positions for 10 years. So we have a better outlook long-term. I think short-term we need to support our founders, and we are worried about the short-term.